In this scenario, Josh and Carlito, you're granted permission to go back in time and convince a deceased historical figure to help you with a mission of yours. It's something that's near and dear to your heart. So which deceased historical figure do you select to help assist you in this mission? And then what is this particular cause and mission, and why is it so very important to you?
It was tough because my first thought went Jesus, right? But is that allowed? Is that playable? Because Jesus did die on earth, but I believe that he rose and he's alive. Even in our own country, there's just so much division. And I think that if I could just walk and talk with Jesus Christ and ask him his advice on how to unify people in general, that we need that. That would be something that I think would just be, unbelievable, incredible. I thought about, okay, who can I look back and who is a big historical figure that fascinates me when they were around, what they were doing while they were around, and also suffered from mental illness. And it's Cleopatra, which I know this is random, but she ran an Egyptian dynasty right before the whole Roman period, and was linked to people like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, and just achieved so much in 39 years, but also apparently suffered from mental illness the whole time, which ended up being her demise. She poisoned herself, committed suicide. And but just to walk and talk with her and be like, what is it like as a woman in the world when things were clearly different, but to run an ancient empire and dealing with mental illness, to be able to connect all these dots and just kind of pick her brain on how are you doing all this, and this is incredible. And how did you guys do all this here in Egypt? Ancient Egypt has always really fascinated me. So
what's funny about Cleopatra? They thought that she had a mental illness based on how she was written by Shakespeare, which is so crazy because there's the play Antony and Cleopatra, and that's in her portrayal. Shakespeare, from what he received as far as information from scholars, he said, later on she wasn't being diagnosed by William. A lot of experts seem to think that she had borderline personality disorder. Do you feel like, regardless of the historical figure that you bring up, whether it's Cleopatra, whether it's Jesus, is there an issue, not with her or with him, but is there an issue with romanticizing the legend and forgetting the flaw of the human when attaching that to a historical figure, do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think that, whether it's Julius Caesar or Cleopatra or Ramses III, whoever you want to talk about, like
right.
He's kind of during that time of like such a period that we don't know anything about. We just do see the romanticized version, right? We see the movies and so we know the pyramids and how were they built and all these things that are just kind of we can't even wrap our heads around, and they're fascinating, but we never really can get to know who's the person.
Carlito, I gotta say this, man. I think this is a positive thing too. When you debuted, obviously, in the WWE, of course, paid your dues, learned a different style here in the States. Must have felt pretty good to go, you know what? Here I am, obviously the biggest company in the world.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure at the same time, but it was definitely a good spot to be in, and I felt like I was ready at the time.
Do you feel right now as if the pro wrestling that we see today caters more to those who want to become, in a weird way, I've heard this, film and TV stars, and perhaps not so much in love with pro wrestling as they used to be? Because back then, growing up, becoming a pro wrestler means you loved pro wrestling. Now sometimes people kind of transition elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I don't like to be those, what do we call those grizzled vets. Times change, and that's what the kids want to do nowadays, then so be it, you know what I mean? But like I said, to succeed, you have to have a love for this business. You know what I mean? So
sure.
Those ones are weeded out quickly. You know what I mean? And there's some that don't start as fans, whatever, and then they become diehard fans, and they become very passionate about the business. So, like I said, the ones that really love it will last, and the others they'll just kind of go away.
Yeah.
The funny thing to me was, I was a kid, I didn't really understand the business. The only thing I would see backstage is like, man, the good guys are like the jerks, and the bad guys are the nice guys. You know what I mean? Because the good guys will get all the everybody's cheers and we love, and the bad guys had to betray, So it was just weird to me. It was like I didn't understand the business. I'm like, why are these? I thought these were the good guys. Why are they such jerks? And these bad guys, they don't seem like nice guys. I don't think.
When you said that, I was looking at Josh because I was thinking of Dallas, and I was thinking of Larry Hagman, and he was like hated by people in that Dallas series. Josh, you got to work with the guy. I didn't know him as well as you, but what a sweet guy, right?
Absolute sweetheart. And it's funny, Carlito, what you were just saying, I was going to chime in that it's kind of a known thing also in like the acting world when it comes to a lot of times when you see a guy that always plays bad guys, movies and
Nicest
TV.
guys in the world.
Probably a really, really nice person.
Probably a nice guy, yeah.
And no offense to anybody out there, but a lot of times history has repeated itself. When an actor is always playing a good guy, he's probably not the nicest guy.
Yeah.
Guys and gals and pals, I'm going to transition over to Mr. Carlito with the same question for him.
Who are the great warriors that conquered the most land? Of course, it was Alexander the Great. And then I looked up, I remember back to history class, it was Genghis Khan.
If you look at the territory, there's
A vast, so that means all different cultures that he conquered. So if I could go back in time, I would, it's one of the things, right, that, you weren't alive at that time, so you don't know. It's very easy to say nowadays. But I even thought that back when I was a kid, I was like, the way most of them, I think Genghis Khan was like this, they were ruthless, you know what I mean? And they would enslave, and they were arrogant. They would want to kill all their beliefs and stuff and impose their own belief system on other people. I don't know if there's a way I could get in his head and say, look, when we conquer these territories, try and, instead of trying to kill their beliefs, let's adopt, we can learn from other cultures. And I think, we can bring these other people in, you know what I mean? Obviously, I get it. You want to expand the territory and whatever. But I think if we led with more compassion and embracing people instead of just treating them, like slaves or trying to garbage, maybe, I don't know, years, because now a lot of times, it's funny, all these wars and these people are fighting now. And the crazy thing is that what they're fighting for, they weren't even alive when all this happened. You know what I mean? This is crazy. Like, I think if somehow, I don't know if it would correct everything, but at least I think people would be a little more understanding of his culture and be a little more united than the way things are.
Do you feel like knowledge is always necessarily more powerful than belief? Is knowledge more powerful than one's own belief?
Well, I think that knowledge is something that you can acquire with effort. Knowledge is something that you can use. Belief is something that I think is super powerful. And why? Because if someone believes in something, it creates ambition, it creates desire, it creates productivity, it creates hope, it creates, if you dream or believe, then it's corny, right? Like anything is possible if you just believe or have dreams. Never let your dreams die. Knowledge is powerful because it's something attainable, but belief is something that you could hopefully attain that you would never think you could, but you believe.
Sure.
If you believe it, I think that you can.
Carlito?
I think they go hand in hand, because belief without knowledge too can be dangerous. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's great to believe, but also definitely, you just can't be out there ignorant and look at we have belief in everything, then you kind of fall for everything. So you need kind of knowledge to back up those beliefs and to mold your beliefs. You know what I mean?
If you have to pay for the following, Josh, if you could pick only one, which of the following would you pay for to see and why? Rocky Balboa as a neurosurgeon, Seinfeld as a correctional officer, or Rambo as a talk show host?
Those are good. I think that Rambo would be hilarious, but Seinfeld also just
Seinfeld as a
because,
correctional officer,
yeah, I think I'd have to go with that one. I mean, just the randomness of his wit, and seeing him kind of try to, break up a fight or handle the yard, I guess, per se. I think that would be terrible.
I go Rambo as a talk show. I think that would just be a train wreck.
Yeah.
And a ratings disaster. But I think, it could be one of those things where it's so bad it's good. So, I mean, that could be very entertaining,
We're going to finish up with our final topic. We'll rotate it out and start with Carlito first and then Josh. It's called Freedom is a Song. If heaven had its own national anthem, what would its title be and why? Carlito, and upon walking through those pearly gates of heaven for the first time, who would you like to see first as this national anthem of yours is playing and why?
I would say my mom. I don't have a wife or kids. So at this point, probably I would have to say my mom, just because she's still alive, thank God. You know what I mean? So let's be thankful for that, and hopefully many years more. Just because she's like the anchor of the family, you know what I mean? She's we all roll on her. She only keeps everybody together. We get together at the Thanksgivings and the big holidays. We all find a way to get together somehow. And she's the one that's always mostly responsible for that. So that would be my mom. And then the song, I would say Welcome Home would be the name of it. And then the cool thing about it is everyone hears it in their language. You know what I mean? The song is multi-linguistical, I guess, is that word? So, whatever you speak English, everybody hears that same song, but in their language.
So I think that heaven is a place where no one's perfect. There hasn't been a person that walked this planet that's perfect. So we're all welcome, and come as you are. So come as you are is the name of the song. Again, my Meemaw, I've lost grandparents and who I love very much, and people from family and friends. But I would just love to see my Meemaw and be like, it's how you been. I know that you've been up here and hanging out with people that you have lost and that we've lost. And I got to spend the last week of her life with her by an accident. And I don't want to go off tangent, but I was playing baseball. I was 12 years old, got hit in the face with a baseball line drive, and had to go to the hospital. And my mom was out of the country, and I had no one to take care of me, no one to pick me up. And this was all shattered, and my entire, this side of my face had to kind of like be fixed, and my eye and everything else. And my Meemaw showed up, and she was sick, and stayed with me for the last week of her life. And I had to sleep sitting up, so she would make sure that I was up all night. And I'll never forget, we were sitting on the patio overlooking Sunnyvale, Texas, where her house was, looking over the fields behind her house. We were both in rocking chairs, and I was listening to Tupac, Dear Mama, next to my Meemaw, trying to explain to her who Tupac was. And I would have never spent that last week of her life with her if I didn't get hit by that baseball. And then she, as soon as my mom got back in the country, I went back home, and then my Meemaw died 2 days later. So it was like one of those accidents that if it didn't happen, I would have never gotten to spend that time with her. So I would have just, when I get to heaven, I'd love to see her, give her a big hug, tell her thank you so much for that last week that we got to spend together, and I'm glad to be here.
Hey man, you had a nice time, my friend.
Man, what a pleasure, brother. I knew that it was going to be awesome because I know how uplifting you are, how you're such a unique and amazing individual. So I knew this was going to be fun, but it exceeded my expectations, and I can't thank you enough. This has been really, really cool.